You wake up, but something is wrong. The ceiling is so low your head brushes against it when you try to sit. The walls are close enough to touch with both arms extended. Two tiny windows exist, but they are sealed with blackened wood. No light enters. No sound reaches you. You have been here for as long as memory exists. This is not a nightmare you will wake from. This is every single day of your entire life. Until the day a stranger opens the door, teaches you to walk like a toddler learning for the first time, teaches you to say one sentence, and abandons you in a city square with a letter in your hand and no explanation for what existence actually means. This happened to a real boy in 1828. His name was Kaspar Hauser. And 5 years after he emerged from darkness, someone murdered him to keep him silent. The 26th of May, 1828. Nuremberg, Germany. A teenage boy staggers into the Unschlittplatz square. His boots are shredded, feet bleeding through torn leather. He wears a silk necktie and a handkerchief embroidered with the initials K and H, but his gait resembles a toddler, not a young man of 16. He holds 2 letters in trembling hands. When approached by a shoemaker named Weichmann, the boy can only repeat 2 phrases. I want to be a cavalryman, as my father was. And when asked anything else, he whispers, horse, horse. Then he begins to cry. Weichmann leads him to the house of Captain von Wesnig, the man named in the letter. The captain opens the envelope and reads words that will haunt Nuremberg for centuries. The anonymous writer claims the boy was given into his custody as an infant on the 7th of October, 1812. That he kept the child locked away, never allowing him a single step out of my house. That now the boy should become a soldier or be hanged. The second letter, allegedly from the boy's mother, states his name, Kaspar. Born 30th of April, 1812. Father, a cavalryman. Dead. The captain tries to question him. Kaspar can write his own name when given a quill, but understands almost nothing else. He is taken to the police station. They place him in a cell, not as punishment, but because no one knows what else to do with a boy who seems to have lived outside the boundaries of human society. A boy who, when offered meat and vegetables, rejects them in disgust, eating only bread and water. A boy who walks like gravity is a new concept. A boy who flinches at sunlight as if it burns. Within days, Kaspar Hauser becomes a sensation. The mayor of Nuremberg publicizes the case, and newspapers across Europe pick up the story of the foundling boy from nowhere. The city formally adopts him. A schoolmaster named Friedrich Daumer takes him in, attempting to educate this strange teenager who reads like a child but learns with terrifying speed. Under Daumer's care, Kaspar begins to speak. And when he speaks, he describes something that should not be possible. A soul, perhaps 2 meters long, 1 meter wide, 1.5 meters high. Too small to stand upright. 2 windows, both sealed with black wood. Perpetual darkness. Bed of straw. Bread and water appearing each morning as if delivered by ghosts. Toy horses carved from wood. Nothing else. No human contact. No conversation. No light. No understanding that a world existed beyond those walls. For 16 years. Kaspar claims he never saw his captor's face. Only a masked figure who appeared in his final days, teaching him letters by tracing them on paper left in the cell. Teaching him to stand, though his legs had never supported his weight. Teaching him to walk, though he had never taken a step. Teaching him one sentence to repeat, though he did not understand its meaning. And then, without explanation, releasing him into Nuremberg with those 2 letters and nothing else. The story horrifies Europe, but it also raises questions that claw at the edges of belief. How did Kaspar survive infancy in such conditions? How did he learn language so rapidly after 16 years of silence? How could he read and write within weeks when most children require years? And why, if someone wanted him dead or forgotten, would they release him into public view? Daumer notes something extraordinary. Kaspar possesses heightened senses that seem almost supernatural. He can see in near total darkness. He can smell food from impossible distances. He can hear conversations through walls. When presented with a magnet, he claims he can feel its pull on his body, as if invisible currents flow through him. He draws with remarkable skill. He plays music as if it speaks a language he understands better than words. Then, in October of 1829, the first attack occurs. Kaspar is found in Daumer's cellar, bleeding from a wound to his forehead. He claims a hooded man struck him, whispering, "You still have to die before you leave the city of Nuremberg." Kaspar insists he recognized the voice. The same voice that released him. The same voice that imprisoned him his entire life. But no one else saw the attacker. No one heard footsteps. The only evidence is Kaspar's blood trail, leading from the outhouse to the cellar. Skeptics begin to whisper. Is Kaspar a victim? Or an actor in a performance designed to capture attention and sympathy? The letters he carried were analyzed, both written in the same hand. Possibly his own. His story contains contradictions. How could someone survive total isolation from infancy? Medical experts argue it should have destroyed his mind, left him incapable of language, unable to function. Yet Kaspar not only functions, he thrives. But then, rumors surface that shift the entire narrative into something darker. Whispers that Kaspar Hauser is not a nobody. That he is, in fact, the missing hereditary prince of Baden, switched at birth with a dying infant to clear the path for a rival bloodline. That Louise Caroline of Hochberg, disguising herself as the White Lady, a ghost from local legend, kidnapped the true prince and imprisoned him to secure her own son's claim to the throne. That Kaspar's emergence threatened to unravel a conspiracy spanning decades. That powerful people wanted him silent. Permanently. Anselm von Farbach, Bavaria's top criminologist, becomes obsessed with Kaspar's case. He publishes a passionate work arguing that Kaspar is indeed a victim of a crime against the human soul. Farbach believes the boy's story. He believes someone powerful orchestrated his imprisonment. He believes the attacks are real. And he begins investigating who might benefit from keeping Kaspar's true identity hidden. Lord Stanhope, a British nobleman, arrives in Nuremberg in 1831. He becomes Kaspar's guardian, posting rewards for information about the boy's captors. None are ever claimed. He takes Kaspar to Hungary, hoping to trigger memories, because Kaspar recalls a few Hungarian words and phrases. Nothing surfaces. Stanhope arranges for Kaspar to live in Ansbach under the care of Dr. Meyer, a schoolmaster who promises to continue his education. But Meyer grows disillusioned. He finds Kaspar increasingly difficult, untruthful, prone to dramatic claims that cannot be verified. Kaspar, meanwhile, grows dissatisfied with his life as a clerk. He believes himself destined for something greater. He still hopes Lord Stanhope will take him to England, elevate him into high society, reveal his true noble heritage. But Stanhope grows skeptical. He begins to suspect the attacks might be self-inflicted, designed to maintain public interest, to keep the myth alive. And if you are starting to feel the ground shift beneath you, if you're beginning to question what is real and what is performance, you are experiencing exactly what everyone in Kaspar's life experienced. Because here is a question that no one can answer with certainty. Was Kaspar Hauser a boy destroyed by unimaginable cruelty, or was he a master manipulator who created what history's most elaborate deceptions? If this story is pulling you into the same disorientation that consumed 19th century Europe, subscribe to this channel. Because we do not offer easy answers. We offer the questions that reveal how fragile certainty actually is. On the 14th of December, 1833, Kaspar Hauser bursts through the door of his home in Ansbach, clutching his side. Blood seeps through his shirt. He claims a stranger lured him to Hofgarten Park with a promise of revealing information about his mother. The stranger stabbed him, left a small purse containing a note written in mirror-reversed pencil. The note reads, "Hauser will be able to tell you quite precisely how I look and from where I am. To save Hauser the effort, I want to tell you myself from where I come. I come from the Bavarian border, on the river. I will even tell you the name, L." 3 days later, Kaspar Hauser dies from the wound. His final words are fragmented, contradictory. He describes the attacker differently each time. Authorities search for evidence at the park. They find no footprints except Kaspar's own. No signs of struggle. The wound, medical examiners note, appears to have been inflicted at an angle consistent with self-harm. The person note seems staged. Lord Stanhope and Dr. Meyer both believe Kaspar stabbed himself to revive public interest, to force Stanhope to fulfill his promise of taking him to England. But the blade went deeper than intended. Others insist it was murder. That powerful conspirators finally silenced the boy who threatened their claim to power. That Farbach himself was poisoned months earlier to stop his investigation. That Kaspar was telling the truth all along, and his death proves it. The mystery never resolves. Kaspar Hauser is buried in Ansbach Cemetery. His tombstone reads, "Here lies Kaspar Hauser, riddle of his time." But here's what haunts about Kaspar Hauser's story. It is not just about whether he lied or told the truth. It is about what his existence, real or fabricated, reveals about identity, consciousness, and what makes us human. If Kaspar's story is true, he represents something science insists should not exist. A mind that developed in near total isolation. Cut off from language, from social interaction, from sensory stimulation. Every theory of human development suggests such conditions should produce severe cognitive impairment, permanent damage. Yet Kaspar learned to read, write, draw, and play music within months. He formed complex thoughts. He navigated social situations. How? Some argued his heightened senses were proof he had adapted to darkness. That the human mind, when deprived of normal input, compensates by amplifying what remains. Others claimed his rapid learning proved he could not have been isolated at all. That the story was fabrication from the start. But both explanations leave something unresolved. If isolation damages irreparably, Kaspar should not have recovered. If he was never isolated, why fabricate such an extreme tale? What did he gain beyond temporary fame and a modest pension? The conspiracy theory offers one answer. If Kaspar was the hereditary prince of Baden, his imprisonment was not cruelty for its own sake. It was calculated political strategy. Remove the legitimate heir without killing him outright, which would be too obvious. Keep him alive but hidden, just in case. Then, when he becomes a liability, release him into public view where he can be dismissed as a madman or fraud. If he gains credibility, silence him permanently. Genetic testing in 1991 and 2002 attempted to resolve the question. DNA samples from hair and clothing attributed to Kaspar were compared to descendants of Stephanie de Beauharnais, who would have been his mother if he were the prince. The results were inconclusive. Not identical, but not definitively ruled out. A mutation could explain the deviation. Or if the samples could belong to someone else entirely. But the philosophical weight of Kaspar's story does not rest on his bloodline. It rests on the impossibility of knowing. If he lied, he did so with such commitment that he died maintaining the performance. If he told the truth, he survived conditions that should have destroyed him. Either way, Kaspar Hauser forces us to confront something uncomfortable. The line between victim and perpetrator, between truth and fiction, between insanity and insight, is thinner than we want to believe. What happens to a mind deprived of everything we consider essential to human development? Does it cease to be human? Or does it reveal something fundamental about consciousness that normal conditions obscure? When someone tells a story we cannot verify, when their behavior defies medical explanation, when their existence threatens powerful people, do we believe them? Or do we dismiss them to preserve our own sense of order? Kaspar Hauser's tombstone calls him a riddle. But perhaps the riddle is not about who he was. Perhaps the riddle is about us. About how desperately we need certainty. How uncomfortable we become when a story refuses to resolve. How quickly we choose sides, victim or fraud, rather than sit with the possibility that we will never know. Because here is what remains after all the investigations, all the theories, all the genetic tests. A teenage boy appeared in Nuremberg in 1828 with a story that should not be believable. He lived for 5 years in public view, captivating and infuriating everyone who encountered him. Then he died from a wound that was either murder or tragic miscalculation. And nearly 200 years later, we still argue about what happened. Maybe Kaspar was a prince. Maybe he was a con artist. Maybe he was traumatized by something we can never fully understand. Maybe he was all of those things at once. The human capacity for survival, for adaptation, for deception, for truth, exists on a spectrum that defies simple categories. And Kaspar Hauser lived somewhere in the unmapped territory where those spectrums intersect. If you walked away from this story with more questions than you started with, if you found yourself changing your mind about Kaspar's credibility multiple times, if you realize that certainty is a luxury most mysteries do not afford, share this. Because some riddles do not need solutions. They need witnesses. People willing to sit with discomfort. People willing to admit that sometimes the most honest answer is, I do not know. And that is okay. Kaspar Hauser spent 16 years in darkness, then 5 years in light, then eternity in the ground. But the question he left behind still breathes, still demands we look at it, still refuses to let us look away. What would you believe if you were there in 1828 when a boy who could barely walk told you he had been imprisoned his entire life? What would you risk to find the truth? And when the truth refuses to show itself, what story do you choose to live with?